Around the week, another time we meet here on Morning Prime. My name is Dibala Nea, trust you've slept easy. You've had a lovely restorative weekend and you're ready for the week. A big day also for the talks. The resumption of the day venue will be at the Bomas of Kenya. And of course, we shall be giving you all the gritty details as far as the talks are concerned. And the cost of living continues also to spark a lot of reactions so far, where we can see a divided house within Kenya Kwanza. People seeing differently as far as the cost of living is concerned. Some saying we have just to get, of course, on with the reality and get a grip of it as far as that is concerned, because these are exogenous circumstances that are forcing the spiking of the fuel prices as far as the global shocks are concerned, or the external shocks are concerned right now. So there's nothing much the government can do. That is what it has stated. But also different leaders have different voices regarding this as well. We shall be discussing this with our panelists this morning, today here on Standpoint, just to get also what is their standpoints as far as the bipartisan talks is concerned, the cost of living, and also we shall also be looking at the specter of climate change that everyone now is being on alert as far as El Nino is concerned. But before we head there, let's see what is fresh off the press as always on our dailies this morning, before we endeavor with much ado about our discussion this morning. The Standard is up, and this is what you're waking up on the front page of the Standard this morning. Kenya Kwanza. It will only get worse. That is what we have as a splash today. It will only get worse. This is about the cost of living. In the heydays of Tanga Group, they castigated Uhuru Kenyatta as careless leader when prices of fuel hit 134. Now in government and prices well over 200 shillings, they want you to prepare for even tougher times. And this is what they said, some of them. It is now so despicable, insensitive, inconsiderate of the government that we elected, that their preoccupation every day is to add the cost of living to the people of Kenya. This is what Ndindi Nyoro said, and that also is tucked away inside the Standard today. Moses Kuria, it is true that we are facing the challenge of soaring cost of living. There is nothing to hide. We as leaders are telling you the truth that the cost of fuel has skyrocketed all over the world. That story, you want to follow it on page 4 of the Standard today. On the sidebar, tale of success from the streets to graduation. Graduate from Embu University shares his life, tough journey, born of a jobless single mother and later left to fend for himself and siblings until a well-wisher mobilized a community to fund his education. And now he's giving all that story on page 3 of the Standard this morning. On top here we have a teaser, new bill to tame rogue land selling companies. You can follow the story on page 8, and all Museveni rides on past heroics on page 22. You have also your health and science pull-out magazine that comes in handy for you every Monday here in the Standard. Kipyegon closes season on a high. And that is a story that you want to follow on page 32 of the Standard this morning. Making us proud, Team Kenya there. That is the latest that we have, where we know that Ethiopia's Tsegay smashes Kenya's Faith Kipyegon's women's 5,000 meters world record, locking a new time of 14 minutes and 21 seconds in Eugene. That is the letters that we do have, and you can follow the story inside the Standard as well. MP's big push for technology-assisted conception. Previous attempts by Suba North MP Millie Odhiambo to enact laws to regulate technology-assisted conception failed. And you can follow the legislators who is back with this particular push with 2 new drafts, which she says will offer reprieve to couples battling infertility. You can follow the story on page 2 of the Standard this morning. Man battles banks' powers on auctions is another story on page 16 of the Standard this morning. This is how it looks. You can grab a copy for yourself. Death of trade unions. That is a splash on the front page of the Daily Nation. End of an era. The flagger asks a very probing question there. wielding enormous power with a sizable constituency, countrywide structures, and the potential to mobilize members on social or political matters, trade unions have always been a thorn in the flesh for successive governments. But not anymore. The workers' lobbies of 2023 have lost their spark and are now a pale shadow of their former self. And this story is tucked away on page 6 and 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. Cracks in Kenya Kwanza over taxes, cost of living, fuel prices. President William Ruto's nascent administration is facing a litmus test as calls for a cabinet reshuffle grow louder amid infighting in the government, soaring cost of living, compounded by rising fuel prices, increased taxation, squabbling within government, and a restive support base. That is presenting the president with a tough balancing act once he returns to the country from the United States. Further compounding the myriad of challenges the head of state will be confronted with what he says here is a seemingly re-energized opposition which has threatened to deploy an unstated action against the ruling regime. 211.64, that is the current cost of a litre of petrol in Nairobi. Fuel prices crossed 200 shillings mark for the first time in history following the government's latest review. And you can follow the story inside the Daily Nation this morning. Still on the side, but there, rugby. Kenya beats Zimbabwe to qualify for Paris Olympics. Kenya Shujaa yesterday became the second team sport from Kenya to qualify for the 2024 Paris Olympics after showing a lot of bravery to pick their direct ticket at the Rugby Africa Men's Sevens in Harare. Shujaa shocked the world Rugby Sevens series, and you can follow the story on page 33 of the Daily Nation this morning. Family now demands justice for girl found dead at City University. Questions abound over the murder of a Daystar University student within the institution's premises, with her family demanding answers. Mercy Gerono, who was 18, was killed just 4 days after reporting at Daystar's Arthur River campus in Machakos County. You can follow this story on page 3 of the Daily Nation this morning. KCP Mathematics and KCSE Chemistry, you have that inside the Daily Nation. On the Junior Sport, you can grab a copy to get all the papers. And Rogue Border Borders, that is Border Borders, I should say. Rogue Borders. It was tripping as Border Borders, but here's Rogue Borders. Tough new laws on the way. Heavy fines and jail term for overloading, riding on pavement and wrong side on the roads. Heavy fines and jail term for overloading, riding on pavements and wrong side of the road. We hope this will bring sobriety in this particular sector, which has been a menace to many. Right, when you look left, they are on the right. You turn right only to find them. They are on your way. A shocker will be there for them if this really is installed in place. You can follow the story on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. And Ruto, top guns under fire as cost of living soars. Moses Kuria, who is a CS Trade, also have Davis Church, who is managing that particular docket. That is energy and petroleum. Also have President's financial advisor. It will get better. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua says this during his visit in Colombia. And on the sidebar was hospital boss poisoned before being stabbed. No fight back. Eric Maigo, the Nairobi Hospital Finance Director who was killed in his house, did not fight back as he was being stabbed 25 times. That story continues to show. The post-mortem results has revealed this. It is unusual for one to fail to react to such infliction of deadly injuries, pointing to the possibility Maigo could have been poisoned before he was killed. And you can follow the story on page 2 of today's Star. Shujaa upsets South Africa to qualify for 24 Paris Olympics. A new look Shujaa outfit stand powerhouses South Africa 17-12 there to qualify for the Olympics for the third time. in history in Harare, Zimbabwe on Sunday. Scenes of jubilation and emotion were all evident at Harare Sports Club as Kenya sealed the automatic slot to the Paris Games. You can follow the story on the back page of the Star this morning. That's how it looks. Against culture, Khalwale, Malinya village boy who won't disclose number of kids. That is another story that you want to follow on page 8 of the Star this morning. This is how it looks. Fuel, why Kenyans are suffering. The government has fallen short of money to stabilize prices as IMF piles pressure on Ruto to cut out subsidies. Also, shilling remains weak against dollar as oil exporting nations reduce supplies, pushing up prices globally. And you can follow this story on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. We had some covenant with IMF, but suddenly the pain is heavy. It is not going to be easy. This is what Energy CS is saying. And questions abound regarding the government-to-government arrangement on cushioning Kenyans and also on making sure that at least there's stabilization of the pricing there. So what does it really portend? 580 billion shillings is what Kenya is going now to be paying the Gulf states on this government-to-government oil deal. And remember, the shilling is on a free fall as well. The story, you can follow it on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. And Azimio protest minor Jenga abduction. Opposition leader or leaders demand that controversial sect leader be released amid reports that he was abducted by police squad. And you can follow this story on page 6 of the People Daily this morning. Also, there's a reshuffle, maybe in the whole thing. Clock ticks as CSs over high costs. Rigathi fires first warning short of ministers' comments as Mudavadi hints at possible reorganization. You can follow the story on page 5 of the People Daily this morning. On page 30, Man United fans unhappy with poor performance is another story you can follow inside the People Daily this morning. This is how it looks. Let's see what we have on the front page of Taifa Leo. Shoka juu yao. Rais Ruto ashinikizwa awateme mawaziri na maafisa kadhaa wa mienendo yao isiyoridhisha. Upayukaji, huenda maafisa kadhaa wa ngazi ya juu wasidumu serikalini au wakahamishwa baada ya viongozi mbalimbali wa Kenya Kwanza, wakiwemo naibu rais, kiongozi wa mawaziri na seneta Khalwale kumtaka rais achukue hatua kali dhidi ya waropokaji na wanaotepetea kazini. You can follow the story on page 2 of Taifa Leo this morning. And some of the cabinet secretaries also are splashed here on the front page of Taifa Leo. On the sidebar, bila Faruk huwezi kuingia ikulu. Hakuna anayeweza kumfikia rais bila kupitia kwa msaidizi wake Faruk. That story continues on page 5 of Taifa Leo this morning. Kotu sasa pia kugoma kwa ushuru. Muungano wa huo walia kodi ya juu ya mafuta ukisema ndio sababu ya bei kupanda. You can follow the story on page 3 of Taifa Leo this morning. And Shujaa ndani ya Olimpiki is another story that you can follow inside Taifa Leo. Utekaji nyara Maina Njenga, viongozi wa Azimio wafokea serikali kutumia ukatili wa polisi kutisha wafuasi wao. You can follow the story on page 2 inside Taifa Leo. Let's buckle down to some business. As always, Kakuzi bosses under probe over payments to related companies. Capital Markets Authority accuses officials of not disclosing interest in funds dispute headed to the Capital Markets Tribunal. Senior officials of Kakuzi PLC are under investigation over financial and other dealings in the company, the Capital Markets Regulator has revealed. CMA, in a report released a short while, is investigating allegations which, if proved, could disclose transactions at the Nairobi Security Exchange listed agricultural farm that may have cost shareholders dearly for years while enriching some officials of the company. You can follow this story inside the Business Daily on page 2. New NHIF premiums capped at 5,000 shillings for top earners. Workers earning 18,000 or 181,000, I should say, 818 and above have been spared from paying higher contributions to the yet-to-be-formed Social Health Insurance Fund after the state opted to cap the premiums at 5,000 shillings. An early proposal in the Social Health Insurance Bill 2023 to have graduated contributions pegged at 2.75% of gross monthly pay would have seen high-income earners pay upwards of 22,000 shillings a month. Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nahumisha and National Health Insurance Fund Acting CEO Samson Kuhora separately said the premiums will be reviewed with the minimum contributions for formal workers capped at 300 shillings. You can follow the story on page 2 of the Business Daily. SRC marks more allowances for scrapping. The Salaries and Remuneration Commission has identified more allowances for removal in its push to harmonize public sector pay. The secondary scraps, which mark the third phase of the review of allowances, are expected to involve employing institutions. Also, Rubis takes 4.7 billion shillings bonds as payment for fuel subsidy. KCB Corp Bank fight for second place in market value rankings. And that story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. In Uganda, government in race to replace 5,000 retiring teachers. That is what is holding the splash this morning there. And you can follow the story on page 4. And Kadaga claims credit for tax-free diapers. You can follow that story on page 5 of the Daily Monitor this morning. In Tanzania, ways Tanzania can attract more private capital. Tanzania can surpass its peers in East Africa in private capital if corrective measures are taken to address some shortcomings as the region's performance soars in attracting foreign direct investment through private equity and venture capital. 7.3 billion shillings. That is, of course, the eye-popping figure as far as FDI is concerned. You can follow this story inside the Citizen this morning. And smile for 45 women after successful IVF at Kairuki Hospital. That is on page 3, a breakthrough there. Investment inflows hit 2.33 trillion shillings. That is the story that you want to follow inside the Citizen this morning. We may cross over now to Rwanda, where it is yet to deploy drones in fighting environmental crimes. That is what is up its collective sleeves right now. Environmental crime is the 4th largest criminal activity in the world, the flagger says here, and you can follow the story on page 4 of the New Times. President Kagame holds talks with Cuban counterpart, that is Bermudez, and you can see them here. Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez and President Kagame during the G77 plus China summit in Havana on September the 17th, that is yesterday. During the meeting, the heads of state delved into the shared history of their respective countries and reached an agreement to enhance bilateral relations, particularly in the area of education, health, and trade. And that story continues inside the New Times as well. On the side, the new Ellen DeGeneres documentary on conservation work in Rwanda to air this month, and lawyers ready to cash in on alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. You can follow that story on page 3 of the New Times this morning. This is our looks. Well, I shall be showing you what we have on The Economist, the China Daily as well, the Newsweek, the Times, and other international publications as we continue past with our conversation here with our panelists. Allow me to introduce them. They're already here in studio. I'm holding court this morning with Okongo Mogini, who is the senator for Nyamira County. Also, we do have with us Member of Parliament for Kitui Central. This is Dr. Makali Mulu. Also, we are holding court with politician Wilson Susion as well this morning. Maybe just to hear their voices, how it is fresh. All right, from, is it from bed or from Kitui Central or, or from Bomet or from Nyamira? Let's begin with you, Senior Counsel.
Yeah, I don't know what to say, but it's a painful morning, you know.
It's a painful morning.
The new prices of fuel. But we thank God we are alive.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those saddest moments really for Kenyans. Looking at the way the prices of fuel have shot up, even including kerosene, mm-hmm. a commodity that is used by many poor households in this country. spells doom and disaster for those in the lower cadre of earning power in this country. But the people of Nyamira are fine. They send you greetings this morning.
Mm-hmm. We received the greetings?
Only that they have sent us to come and tell the Oda administration that they are not happy with the rising cost of living. Mm-hmm. I hope Sosioni will deliver that message to his bosses.
All right, Sosioni, let's hear what the people of Bomet also have to say.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, glad to be together again today to discuss affairs of the state and the state of the nation, and what Okongo Mugeni is trying to urge me to deliver a message. I think we are all equally in this studio to discuss issues fairly and equitably, and we are not here to represent anybody. And so the rising cost of living, of course, the cost of fuel is global. It's known. That's common knowledge. And probably it's time we think of investing more in green energy that is renewable, and gradually shift from over-reliance on fossil fuel. There's nothing we can do because we don't have fuel that we can extract locally, and everything is imported. And since the owners of the oil are controlling the prices and the movement of the goods, there's little we can do. So it's going to be hard time.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be hard time.
Hard time.
All right, it's going to be hard time. Kenya being, of course, prepared for that. Let's hear from.
We should dig out.
Yeah, we hear from what Kitui Central are saying.
Good morning, viewers. That is very interesting when I hear Sosioni say it's going to be it's going to be a hard time. I thought he's the person who should be giving Kenyans hope. Mm-hmm. Instead, he's telling Kenyans to tighten their belts. Anyway, Kitui is fine. I didn't manage to go there this weekend, but I've been in touch with my people. But we thank God that we are alive this morning, the bar, and we are here with you just to discuss these issues. I think the cost of living has actually taken the week. It was the climax of the week, the debate on cost of living, and I think really the good thing is Kenyans have spoken. I've been watching the news over time, and you could realize, irrespective of the region, every Kenyan was saying we are about to die because of the cost of living. And this was across the board, all the way from Nandi to Mombasa to Northeastern to Eastern region, where I come from. Everybody is saying it is time the government does something. I think really this huge increase in the price of fuel products was very discouraging to most of us, although those who are economists like us, we have said it many times and in the past that so long as you're not subsidizing fuel, the price is even lower, and that's why I agree with the Sosieni when he says the future is going to be a bit tougher than it is today, because what has been happening in Dibali is that the government has been subsidizing this product, and we have said it's either you remove the subsidy or you then allow the market forces to operate, and I think that's what is happening. And you know, this government has signed some agreements with the World Bank and IMF, and we like it or not, one of the conditions was that you do all the subsidies. So these are the consequences of what is happening. So long as we are going to be doing what the IMF is telling us to do, as a result of us also demanding some things from them, we'll have no choice but to just agree that the price will keep on increasing every month, as Honorable Korea was saying. You know what Korea was saying is the truth, but I think he was not the right person to say it. Been as he is. That's why he's been harassed left and right. But let's give Kenyans hope. We believe that if the government comes out and does a number of things which are being recommended by economists and all financial experts we could get out of this. Although I still stand by my position that what Honorable Musalia Mudavadi said about 2 years required for us to start feeling the good things of this country.
Might even be extended. It should be beyond.
With what is happening now in the international scene. You know, when you see the price of oil, the price of a barrel going up again, our dollar, our shilling against the dollar, really getting serious beating, it might not be soon. Let's prepare ourselves.
All right, we need to ask critical questions as well, because first of all, the government had given an indication that there will be a stabilization fund, and this is just people saying they're hacking back to the stabilization or the subsidy that they had actually drawn back. And now when we realized things were not even getting better, it was the stabilization funds that they were actually putting forth. And the government to government deal with the Gulf of states, some of the Gulf states as well, has not really shown any reprieve as far as this is concerned. Now they're throwing arms in the air and they're saying there's nothing much we can do. What should be the wisest of fashion that the government should react to this situation?
I think, Dibal, you either want to be in government or you quit government. You know, everywhere in the world, there is no country that is as insensitive to its citizens like what I'm seeing from the older administration. Dibal, you know, when there is a rise in inflation, when the cost of living goes high, a government that cares must put in place measures to mitigate the suffering of its people. And that's why in many countries you will get their social support programs. What happened during the regime of President Kenyatta is that to cushion Kenyans against the high cost of fuel, he put in place subsidies. And it's that subsidy that contributed in the stabilization of the price of fuel in the market. Now, what I'm seeing from the current UDA administration is that they have that arrogance and boldness of telling Kenyans, we really don't care. You know, literally you are telling Kenyans, even if you die from the high cost of living, we don't care. I don't think, Dibal, you can lead a government with that attitude unless you really want to be placed in the fate of many African presidents who have held the same attitude and they have served one term. You know what John Mahama did in Ghana? You know, the economy of Ghana was on a downward trend. Because of the shilling, the Ghanaian shilling weakening against the dollar, the exports, agricultural exports, were not able to attract good prices abroad. And there was a lot of disaffection from the citizens. So he lost in one term. He never got a chance to serve in the second term. And I think this is the momentum that I'm seeing. That you have people like Moses Kuria. Just picture a minister who is telling Kenyans that we as government, because he's speaking on behalf of government, we as government will do nothing, but if you want to go and dig your own wells. I mean, what kind of arrogance is that from a CS to a population that is almost getting desperate, a population that is getting it difficult to put food on the table, a population that has many youths, Dibal, that have not found employment. So I'm seeing a government that is totally clueless, that does not understand the people it's leading, that has a very careless and arrogant attitude. And I think the only thing I'm seeing is that they are creating a momentum to be sent home come 2027. What happens in other countries like US, when life gets as difficult as it's getting for Kenyans, the government will give money to its citizens. You will hear that Biden has given maybe $1,500 to every American so that you cushion them. The same thing in democracies like Australia. But here, if you ask the socio who represent the government here this morning, what measures have you put in place to cushion Kenyans? Instead, we'll tell you, in the next 2 months by Mashujaa Day, we want to tax Kenyans again. Because the NHIF bill, I think, is being processed, that will be more tax on Kenyans. I've read in the newspapers, unless he denies, that the government wants to increase VAT from 16% to 18%.
Yes.
I mean, how can you really be a government that does not connect with Kenyans like that? I've read that the tax relief that is enjoyed by Kenyans on the income bracket of 1,000 to 25 is being proposed to be removed. What we should actually be doing is to increase that so that you allow more Kenyans, maybe up to 40,000 earning, to be tax-free. That's how you cushion your people against factors that are external, like the increase of fuel outside the country in other countries that are producing oil. I can give you another example. You know what happened to Edgar Lungu in Zambia in 2021? Edgar Zambia had, this belief that he will maintain his traditional support base of northwest of Zambia. And the Ichilema used to control the northeast of the country. But because of the mismanagement of the economy, because of the arrogance of the government of Edgar Lungu, because of the corruption, because of, he had ministers that were almost having the kind of behaviors I'm seeing from Moses Kuria. They had total disconnect with the people. And by the time we were going to the elections, Debal, Ichilema, Akainda had a very easy run towards the presidency. And Edgar Lungu did 1 term. So what I'm seeing from the Uda administration, they have sent a message that their intention is to be in government for 1 term. Come 2027, all these suffering Kenyans will have no options other than to send them home. And do you know what's happening to the SMEs? The small businesses that employ about 8 Kenyans, 60%, and that's the data from Central Bank of Kenya. 60% of them are not able to service their debts. Just imagine. Now, let Sosion tell you the situation from the tea growing regions, what the bonus would be like for farmers. Let Gachagua tell us what is the situation like from Mount Kenya. Because the promise, you remember, every day we were told that Uhuru Kenyatta has mismanaged agriculture. We were told when Uda takes power, the income for farmers will go up. I can tell you the results that are going to be released, what I've seen on social media, is that the bonus for the farmer will reduce by close to 40%. That is factual. The coffee farmer, and the bulk of the coffee farmers are in Mount Kenya, the earning of the coffee farmers has reduced, I'm told, from 100 shilling to as low as 40 shillings. Now, what does the government want these people to do, these Kenyans? To just wait and see the government increasing fuel, diesel going up by almost 14 shillings?
All right, just give it a break. We'll of course get back into that and see also what stories also made headlines yesterday over the weekends that will also be the basis of our discussion this morning, and one of which is of Maina Njenga's abduction, where the family of Maina Njenga is appealing to the government to release their kin. Njenga was allegedly arrested on Saturday evening in Banana area within Kiambu County. According to the family, Njenga notified his family about his arrest minutes after he was allegedly picked by detectives from the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, DCI, alongside his personal aide, Felix Lekisha. But his phone went off and is yet to be found. Azimio La Umoja leaders have accused the police of allegedly abducting Maina Njenga, warning of a fallout on the ongoing national dialogue in Bomas of Kenya if the government does not come clean on the arrest. Willie Lusige has more.
Mungiki leader Maina Njenga, led by his parents, is now living in fear at their Kiserian home in Kajiado County after their son was allegedly abducted by unknown people at Banana a few minutes after visiting his friend in Kiambu on his way home from Nanyuki.
We had had a very rough night of astonishment because of abduction of the two, Maina Njenga and his personal assistant, Mr. Lekishe.
The family says Njenga called his lawyer a few minutes after he was pulled out of his vehicle by unknown people suspected to be members of a special service unit in Kiambu at around 10:45 p.m. before his phone went off.
We are appealing that we want to know their whereabouts because we don't have the trace.
I was personally called by my client, Mr. Maina Njenga, informing me of his abduction. He was able to identify his abductors. There is no doubt that his abductors are the police officers.
We now know from the family were in Subarus. They were armed. They were also hooded. These are characteristics we know of the special service unit.
Azimio la Umoja leaders led by Kalonzo Musyoka have accused the police of allegedly abducting former Mungiki leader Maina Njenga. Azimio referring to the alleged Saturday night incident as a gangster-style abduction by the government, terming Njenga's abduction as an attempt to distract Kenyans from the economic mess that the Kenya Kwanza government regime has put Kenyans in.
It is an attempt to distract Kenyans from the mess, economic mess, the Kenya Kwanza regime has put Kenyans in, like the skyrocketing cost of living.
Azimio accusing the government of using excessive force to shun opposition leaders, especially when Kenyans are decrying the high cost of living.
We will ask ourselves what is the usefulness of this dialoguing discussions if this continued harassment has not ceased.
This is a country under the rule of law. But what we are witnessing is complete reversal of all the gains that we have made.
Njenga's abduction comes before a pre-trial on Monday in which he was charged with possession of offensive weapons.
After raising taxes, we know that they are going to do this again because they can see the public outrage. Kenyans are hurting.
With many unanswered questions about the disappearance of Maina Njenga, the Azimio team is now saying his abduction was planned well, especially during this time when Kenyans are raising their concern about the high cost of living. Willie Lusige, KTN News, Jaramogi Foundation, in Nairobi.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has called upon Kenya Kwanza leaders who were nominated to the cabinet to exercise caution when addressing Kenyans. According to the DP, Kenya, like the rest of the world, is going through difficult economic times, and leaders should address Kenyans with sensitivity and empathy. The DP's sentiments came even as a section of Kenya Kwanza leaders asked Kenyans to brace for tougher economic times amid the soaring cost of living. The leaders said the recent global spike in the fuel prices will affect many Kenyans, but according to them, the government had initiated measures to cushion them. Elvis Koske has more.
In Gachagua's statement, the second in command said, and I quote, "I would like to remind them that although the people of Kenya did not employ them directly, they decisively elected President William Ruto, who in turn appointed them cabinet secretaries and advisors, and hence, by virtue of this, they are employed by Kenyans. You do not address your employer with arrogance. Do so with humility and decorum." A red part of the statement. The DP said that the government remains aware and is sensitive to the challenges Kenyans are facing, and that the arrogant statements by a few leaders do not in any way reflect the official government position or that of President William Ruto. Gachagua's sentiments came as a section of Kenya Kwanza leaders exuded confidence that the government, under the leadership of President William Ruto, will initiate tough and innovative measures that will cushion Kenyans from more pain.
Na sisi kama viongozi ambao wanajiheshimu, ile inatubidi ni kuambia ukweli. Mafuta imepanda dunia yote. Umesikia vile Sholei ametuambia Uganda wananunua bei iko juu kuliko sisi. Mwezi ujao tutakuwa pia na changamoto ya mvua ya mafuriko ile tunaita El Nino. Hata hiyo El Nino mtasema ni William Ruto ameleta jameni.
Yeye walikuwa last regime na President Uhuru Kenyatta. Ile simo Kenya ambayo iko, huyo mzee ndio waliigiza Kenya. Sasa mimi nasidwa, mtu amefanya hata hakufanya exam, alienda katika akaambiwa inafanyiwa pale akafukuzwa. Huyo ndiye anafanya maki? Anaweza? Sisi tunamwambia huyu awacha fitina. Rais wetu anafanya kazi na hawa wananchi wanaona.
Sasa ile mtoto anataka kutoka apigiwe kelele. Na wale wanapigia kelele ndio wanafanya hii maisha ya mtoto inakuwa shida. Sisi wa mtoto wetu amezaliwa, tunamtunza, na mimi nataka kueleza kuwa serikali ya William Ruto inaelewa shida ya Wakenya na itatatua kwa wakati yake, na tunafanya vile tunaweza.
They spoke during an interdenominational church service organized by President William Ruto's aide, Farouk Kibet, at Kipkaren, Turbo Sub-County, Uasin Gishu County. The leaders asked Kenyans to brace for tougher economic times amid the soaring cost of living, which they alluded to as economic mistakes made by the previous government.
Uweze kumpa nafasi kwa sababu changamoto ipo. Uchumi iko mbaya, mafuta imeongezeka, lakini hiyo si kitu ambayo itakaa muda mrefu.
Vikundi kama finance, kama ya budget, tukiwa na Ndindi Nyoro hapa na mheshimiwa wetu Moses Kuria, mimi niko na imani ya kwamba hii Kenya itapangika na uchumi itakuwa sawa hapo mbele. Ama namna gani?
Najua pia mnadanganywa kule kwamba that bei ya mafuta imepanda juu. Na wanasema as if ni Kenya peke yake. Wacha niwaeleze hivi. Kenya tunauza petroli na 211.6. Katika Uganda wanalipa 216. Ya Kenya iko juu ama ya Uganda iko juu? Na umeona watu wa Uganda wakienda street.
Jua kitu mzuri yote, hata Biblia inasema. Saa ile maneno mzuri inataka kufanyika, giza inakuwa giza kubwa sana. Lakini tumaini yetu iko hapa mbele. Kunaenda maneno yetu kuwa mzuri tena zaidi.
Visibly, Gachagua seemed to target Trade and Industrialization Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria, who recently tweeted that the price of petrol will be 260 Kenya shillings by February.
Na kama wale watu wa makelele wako na kisima, mimi niko tayari kuchimba kesho. Nionyeshe ngoma yako, niambie chimba mafuta hapa ndio bei iteremke.
The DP also took on David Ndii, Chief Economic Advisor to the President, for asking Kenyans on Twitter to blame greedy lying politicians. Elvis Kosgei, KTN News, Uasin Gishu County.
Now, the recent exponential hike in fuel prices in the country, the free falling shilling and the skyrocketing cost of living may have informed the Azimio Umoja One Kenya coalition to award President William Ruto D- score in his first year as president. The recent prices at the pump, which have crossed the historic 200 shilling mark, may have just exposed the government's inability to arrest the current situation that is getting out of hand, being the most expensive in East Africa. Our political affairs reporter Emmanuel Toh analyzes the fuel prices hike and statements by top Kenya Kwanza honchos before and after the 2022 general election, the politics of fuel that President William Ruto has capitalized, or he capitalized, to occupy the house on the hill.
In the run-up to the 2022 general election, Deputy President William Ruto then capitalized on President Uhuru Kenyatta's economic blunders and the perceived ineptitude to curb the high fuel prices. Then Ruto and his brigade used every opportunity to lay right at the doorsteps of President Uhuru Kenyatta then the lack of ideas in solving the high cost of living, trashing any excuses advanced by the Jubilee regime.
Hii mafuta inaongezwa usiku na mchana. Mimi nataka niwaeleze ya kwamba these people don't understand the damage they are doing to the people and the economy of Kenya.
Fast forward to September 2022, a year after President William Ruto was sworn into office, the head of state seems to find himself between a rock and a hard place on addressing the same issues that bedeviled his boss.
Bei ya mafuta ndio hiyo imefika 135. Mimi nataka niwaulize wale walipatiwa majukumu na rais, subcommittee ya cabinet ya serikali yetu, waketi chini kwa njia ya dharura, watoe advice ndio tujue tunaenda vipi. There wasn't actually a fuel problem. It was a misdiagnosis. The problem was an economic and much more a dollar problem.
I want to tell this government we are giving them an ultimatum. Within 1 day, leo hii ikiisha, lazima waite mkutano wa dharura na waondoe hiyo maneno ya kuongeza kodi katika mafuta. Yeye walikuwa last regime na President Uhuru Kenyatta. Ile simo Kenya ambayo iko, huyo mzee ndio waliigiza Kenya.
In September 13th, 2022, before retired President Uhuru Kenyatta could hand over to President William Ruto, the cost of super petrol in the country was retailing at 159.12 shillings per litre. A year later, the same commodity is retailing at a record high of 211.64 per litre, a difference of 52.52 shillings within a year for a litre of super petrol.
Our scorecard for this regime is 30%. That is D-.
You stood on a platform of bottom up. Kusaidia wale wanyonge, alafu uende juu. Lakini sasa hizi mmesahau. Mkiongeza fuel, mnatesa wale wa chini zaidi kushinda wale wanyonge.
A spot check of fuel prices in East African countries also revealed that Kenya's fuel price remained the most expensive, being the only one that has gone past the 200 shilling mark. In Uganda, a litre of super petrol is sold at 197 Kenyan shillings and 187 shillings in Tanzania.
How come that fuel in Uganda is cheaper than fuel in Kenya? So, and yet the fuel being sold in Uganda goes through Kenya.
With the government still grappling with a conglomerate of challenges, it will be seen whether the cost of the commodity that has a ripple effect on other commodities will come down, but a section of Kenya Kwanza leaders have already predicted doom in coming days. Emmanuel Tor, KTN News, Nairobi.
All right, and of course, those are now the sentiments regarding fuel and the cost of living. And today's editorial cartoon is all about what is on the card, what is on the table. And this is between Raila Odinga and President William Ruto. Everyone is holding their cards as far as the bipartisan talks is concerned. And there are a lot of issues regarding those talks as well. Cost of living has become now also a fixture within those talks, or in the talks as well. And that, just to remind you, we have the resumption of that today. And I'm going back up. All right, I'm going back up. This is Zakayo. And of course, he has his word of cash in that particular, or coins in that particular bag, but he wants to go up. And this is regarding also the recent taxes that we're talking about, the motor vehicle circulation tax. We're talking about also the social health insurance fund. We're talking about the VAT that is bound to be now going up by 2% to 18%, as they say, just to harmonize with what the East African community is doing right now. We have so many taxes that, well, we shall be discussing as well. And this is Zakayo going up the tree. We have Kenya there, or a Kenyan being held captive by the high fuel prices. How high can he go? He's being strangled there. And we've just seen sentiments regarding how the prices are faring also within East Africa. What are the legislators telling us? And what has Emmanuel Tor done a research to just reveal that Uganda, the prices are not as high as Kenya or Tanzania. We still stand to be the highest in the region, and that is not reflecting with what legislators are saying. This is the current state of play. And Kenya Kwanza, we have Moses Kuria there, miti, that is something that is drinking, maybe, so to speak, according to GAMS. Sasa ukishinda, ukisema tangu asubuhi bei imepanda, unafikiri itashuka? Usiwe pumbavu, gharama ya maisha itazidi kupanda tu, lakini dunia mzima inajua Ruero, right, whatever that meant. I think also GAMS knows very well. This is some of the editorial cartoons, economic outlook as it is right now. We know the legislators, all our leaders are out in the country. Ambassador Meg Whitman leading them in the US, of course, for that particular Silicon Valley visit, and also meeting Kenyans there and talking about a raft of issues as well. These are some of the editorial cartoons. Taxes. That toothpaste is paying. You know how you normally pinch the last bit of toothpaste that you have in that tube, or Congo Mogini. This is how now it has been reflected by Victor. We have car tax, we have swimming pool tax for elite schools, we have loss tax, that is a minimum loss tax for companies as well. We have VAT that is at 18%, excise tax or excise duty. We have also tax on tax, and you can see the poor Kenyan there. His eyes are bugging out. He's not having enough to actually bring out from that particular tube.
You didn't even put housing levy tax.
Housing levy tax on this. I think maybe there was no space. So let's just look at that as well, and you tell us, so who is fooling whom as far as the high prices is concerned?
Nobody's fooling anybody. The reality
is,
as
far as the price is concerned here in the country, Uganda and Tanzania, what is the true reflection?
And as I stated earlier, let's not even, we look at comparable prices of fuel across countries and even within the region, you will realize that there's no much difference with what is obtaining in the country. And this is a global commodity. It's not a commodity that we extract locally. It's imported, and we are privy to all information that the OPEC are controlling they've scaled down the flow of fuel, and that's expected to rise. And so what is obtaining in Kenya is out of control of anybody within the country. Whether it's government, there's little that government can do with the obtaining prices of fuel. And so we are in for hard times, and let's hope situations improve. It will only improve when OPEC entities review their prices downwards, parallel, and if that is not done, then we are headed for more difficult times. But as I had stated earlier on, probably this is an eye-opener. Must we continue over-relying on fossil fuel, which is dirty and which contributes a lot of carbon emission? Is it not time that now we invest heavily in green energy? It's time we think outside the box and shift our gears and our focus to green energy solutions.
Right.
Otherwise,
that is for the foreseeable future.
All over the world.
But right now we're in the
all over the world, the oil prices are affecting all economies, and the war in Ukraine is getting more and more complicated, and the flow of fuel across the globe is now restricted. And when it's restricted by OPEC regulations, then you expect the prices to go up. So these are circumstances beyond our control, and this is what we should prepare for.
All right, circumstances beyond our control, but other taxes are within our control. When we talk about the VAT, it is within your control. It doesn't have to measure up to the East African communities and the quest for the monetary union. If you know the country is, you have your national interest first. Also, other interests like the motor vehicle circulation tax also, that is within your control. There are other taxes which are within your control.
I think, Debal, I think, Debal, if we wade into the tax regimes of this country, we may not be able to really exhaust and delve deep into those debates because they are guided by law. These are the taxations and the taxes that are imposed are within the law, and that is one method of raising revenue. The raising measures that are in place, I think none of us can undo it, even in this studio and in this debate. Those are revenue being raised to deliver services to Kenyans, and they're not new. They've been there, and I think if you look at the finance bill itself, several areas where there are tax breaks, like the agricultural inputs or the farm inputs, those are meant to cushion and protect the ordinary Kenyans. But other areas where taxes are being levied, those are taxes meant to finance the budget. How are you going to finance the budget, the national budget, if you don't raise revenue through taxation? And let us get back to if we get to Kibaki administration time, 95% of the budget was financed locally. And I think that is the direction we need to move as a country, to finance our own budget and reduce excessive borrowing. Right now, we are running away from focusing on the huge debts that this country borrowed and is being serviced, and it has to be serviced through revenue that is raised. So really, that's our economy, and we've got to live with it. And the president is working very hard to make sure that our economy balances and the hardships of Kenyans are lessened. And it's not a switch off affair. It's a process. It's complicated.
All right, thank you.
In fact, we have the most complicated economy that is inherited, and to make it work, it will take time. It may take 2-3 years to do that. And so, talking about reviewing taxations, it requires another finance bill in Parliament to do so. And by getting off certain taxes, it means we are losing revenue to finance the budget.
Right. So I don't really understand when you say that taxes that is are predicated on law. The proposal of the taxes are not predicated on the law. That is a proposal.
The taxes that are obtaining, and of course it went through Parliament through the finance bill, you know it, and which is still being challenged by others, and as of course democratically. But then once it is law, taxes must be collected. Are we trying to say we are not going to collect taxes? We sit pretty easy and expect miracles to happen and expect the economy to move?
All right.
No, definitely not. What we should be talking about is prudent use of taxes to deliver services to Kenyans. Because we need to deliver healthcare services. We need to make agriculture work. We need to make businesses work. We need to deliver the digital economy and the infrastructure, deliver housing, and deliver many issues to deliver education to Kenyans and to all households. It's a responsibility of government, and that cannot be done without raising revenue. So revenue raising measures that have been approved through the legislature
allow us to take a short break.
Can only be implemented.
We'll circle back. Yeah, let's take a short break. We'll circle back with, of course, the economist as well, Dr. Bakali Mulu, to just tell us of that, because the latest that we have as well is the fact that despite the fact that we have raised the revenues through taxes, the growth has stagnated. There hasn't been any blip of any growth, or even moving that particular needle a jot higher to just reflect this revenue adjustments. We'll take a short break.